Since the worldwide success of Game of Thrones, the film industry in Northern Ireland has gone from strength to strength, with Hollywood blockbusters and high-end television dramas becoming bread and butter for the local film crews. Assistant director Paul George has witnessed the industry's growth firsthand.
What I've seen is just the industry kind of go from it being still a bit Wild West when I started here to being, and I've worked in different places all over the world, and I think we've got the best crew. There's so many good schemes, and I've been lucky to kind of start working with a few of the companies that are doing them, that are getting people from different ethnic backgrounds, different financial situations, and showing them that, do you know what, this is a viable career path.
It's Paul George on the scene. Film industry, where did it all start for you?
I mean, it probably, if I'm being honest, probably started in different stages. In terms of, if you want to go way back, I was kind of lucky enough to be raised with the idea that if you want something, go and chase it. And I think kind of we've spoken about that before. The generation, our parents maybe didn't, believe that. They thought you had to go and get a steady job and all that. No, my parents always told me to go and chase it. And I was one of the kids that believed that, and started like from, I was early teens, started kind of looking around to see what I could get involved in. And I found a couple of brothers, a couple of older gentlemen from Cumber, kind of local legends in their area, called the Spence brothers, Noel and Roy. And they have been famous around Northern Ireland for one, producing kind of, low budget kind of homages to like the B kind of horror movies, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, It Came from Outer Space, all these types of things, and they would make their own kind of versions of it on a shoestring budget. And it kind of opened my eyes that, stop looking at the excuses and start looking at ways of just how to do it. And they brought me out. They were kind enough. They also did kind of instructional videos for secondary schools and stuff like that, because what they kind of found was when kids were trying to make movies, they kind of shied away from like horror and sci-fi, because that's where you need a lot of, special effects, and, you need a lot of makeup, and, the list goes on and on. But what they wanted to do was show, like, if there's a will, there's a way, basically. So they got me out to kind of...
Well, with their setup and their wee studios and all that they shot in, they were like science labs, weren't they? Because this is the era before all the digital filmmaking and everything was in camera, special effects. It was a really specialized thing they did, wasn't it?
I mean, it was. If you saw like some of the ways, the best thing to do, I think it's on the Digital Film Archive anyway. It's called No Budget Special Effects. And for anyone that's, maybe even like late primary school level, because how young like kids are getting into like making their own content, I would advise watching it, because it's like that moment where you're thinking, how is that done? And then you watch it, you almost laugh at how simple it is. But again, as you know, like right up to the level of jobs we've worked on, sometimes people overcomplicate things, and then all it takes is a fresh set of eyes or ears to come in and go, wait, why don't you just do it like this?
But it's become a lost art, sort of, those in-camera special effects, because of how reliant we are on VFX, computers, and all that sort of thing. So when you go back and watch, because I went to see those guys in the Strand, they had a screening day, didn't they? And they showed footage of when you were working with them. And
when I was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were putting prosthetics on you and all that sort of thing. There's a real creativity to all of that.
Yeah.
That it's getting lost a bit now in the film industry, isn't it?
Well, like, I mean, their heroes, were like people like Harryhausen, that, if you look at Jason and the Argonauts, which no doubt will be shown about 10 times coming up to Christmas anyway. The effects, of those skeletons, the big bronze warrior that comes to life, all has stuck with me in the way that it's stuck with those guys. So whatever they did, they wanted it to be real and on camera. And, they wouldn't even claim to be experts at it, but they're jacks of all trades, and the stuff. One, it's a lot of fun. And two, I think when you can see, especially in a horror movie, for example, if you can see that, like, that thing, that entity, whatever that monster is, if it's actually physically in the room, for me, that adds a whole level to the horror. And I think it is something, I think you are seeing, like, people are starting to come back to that, you know, and kind of, you know, again, we've spoken about directors who overuse CGI before, you and I, and ones that just supplement, you know, a scene or a shot with CGI, you know, like
it's like a tool like anything else, but if you just become over reliant on it, then it starts stifling your creativity, I think.
Well, that's what happened. That's what happened, I think. But, you know, like one of the best examples I can think of is Zodiac, for, you know, how you can use CGI just to enhance something, but it's not your starting point. I think that's kind of what we're both floating around here. I hate the answer, oh, solve it in post, or, you know, part of my job is to try and make a practical suggestion so you don't have to just, and sometimes that can be a creative suggestion. Believe it or not, IDs can be creative, you know, or sometimes it can be just like the most simple suggestion that people can't see the wood for the trees. And sometimes you can step in and just go, have you thought of this?
Well, because all their stuff was shot on a shoestring and it was all VHS type stuff, when you, and I experience it when I'm making small stuff, you sort of, when you're boxed in and you've got no money, it sort of makes you think outside the box, and you do become more creative when you don't have a plethora of tools that you can rely on. You know, they didn't have computers.
It's necessity. You know, necessity is the mother of invention, as the saying goes, or, you know, or like being a rat in the corner, you know, makes you have to come up with some kind of, you know, whatever way you want to describe yourself. Oh yeah, I mean, like we did some things that if you actually, like, I know we were doing a behind the scenes show, but if you watched a behind the scenes of the behind the scenes, some of the stuff we did was absolutely, you know, let's say it wouldn't get passed on a film set today for health and safety, you know, but again, it's simple stuff like getting an old bicycle tube tire, and, you know, if you're filming a car driving and getting me sitting in the boot of a car, you know, not even strapped in, bear in mind, but, and tying the camera off a bicycle tube, you know, and that would take the bumpiness out of the driving, you know, and simple things. And then one of my favorites was as well, like we all grew up watching 80s action movies. Well, people are, I'm grouping you and me in as the same age here, by the way. But
Ish.
but like, so we all grew up seeing that thing where like the hero runs away from machine gun fire and the dust shooting up behind him, you know. Simple things like doing that in kind of grassy kind of undergrowth that had about that much room to hide stuff. And what they would do is make little seesaws and fill them with earth and dust. And then what the hero did, who was me, their guinea pig for want of a better word, but it would be the hero in the movie. You literally run across from A to B and stand on each of those little seesaws, and then a puff of dust immediately comes, you know, like.
I think people, these, like you go say, people who are in their early 20s or whatever, who have studied filmmaking and come through, and, you know, maybe even people that are making it as directors now in their mid-late 20s or whatever, they could learn so much from them guys, couldn't it? Because of all of the stuff those guys done that would be completely alien to this new generation who've just grew up with everything at their fingertips, everything digital. You know, there's so much.
Well, it's
experience.
Craft.
Exactly.
The word is craft, isn't it? You know, and I think like we're talking about, I think when a new technology comes around, and, you know, we're talking about CGI like it's a new technology, but we know it's not. But in terms of for it being photoreal, you know, these things go in a circle, as in you use them, you know, it gets used too much and then it comes back around to kind of some kind of midpoint, you know. But you're right. I think if you understand, and we all know as well, like some people that you meet that are trying to break into this industry think of filmmaking as, you know, almost mythical. It's not. It's problem solving. It's high level problem solving, you know, minute by minute, hour by hour until you're finished shooting.
You've sort of touched on an interesting point there. How important is on-set experience to, like, have you come across instances where you've got directors come in, right?
Yeah.
And these directors have done the whole film school thing, and they know the theory of film inside out, back to front. And then they come in on a shoot day and they've got their sides, which is, the sides are basically what you're going to shoot that day. And they don't have the experience and the practical knowledge to see where the issues, problems, red flags of the day are going to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you, the more, like when you're working on film sets all the time and you see the way the machine moves and the way the mechanics of it all moves, you can see that's going to be a problem. That's going to be, and you can see a few moves ahead. Would that be fair?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I think the more experience, like actual experience on a set you have, I think the better a filmmaker. You know, when I call all of us that work on a film set, you know, who actually care about what they're producing and, you know, the work that we are contributing, you know, we are contributing to that film. So I think the more experience you have on a set, because you suddenly know how long it takes to rig a bonnet mount to a car, and you suddenly realize, well, do you know what? Maybe if we're doing handheld coverage, shooting across onto our hero who's driving, we can shoot that first whilst our grips are setting up the bonnet mount. You know, that's the type of stuff that you only realize with experience, you know. And that's not to say that somebody can't come in, you know, and not have this experience.
Absolutely.
But, you know,
yeah.
Because, you know, there are people, you know, that come from different backgrounds and stuff. And if somebody comes more from like a fine art background, you know, and wants to branch into movies. But I think the key is, again, and you know this as well, I think it's like communication and trust, you know, because if you don't know a certain thing, you know, like, for example, like, you know, I've worked with you on some of your projects and stuff. When you weren't sure of the answer of something, you checked with me, and that was the last we ever spoke about it because you took what I said to the bank. That is...
Do you remember there was the scene where Lawson got out of the car and went to the bank?
The balaclava, yeah.
Yeah, in the balaclava. And I had it in the script that he had a shotgun in his hand, right? And now there's obviously going to be no bullets in it, but then you flagged it up, you know, and then we discussed it, and then we're going, could it be a toy gun or whatever? And then the more I thought about it, you know, we had to get a weapons guy involved then. The more I thought about it, just don't put the gun in. Do you know what I mean? But if you hadn't flagged that, because you remember that day the cops actually did come down. Do you remember?
The cops showed up because it was a Saturday or a Sunday. We're shooting, you know, in the middle of Newry. You know, somebody's always going to go. You know, you got to prepare for the worst. And, you know, the worst there could have been that somebody texted and said, I've just saw somebody getting out of a car with a balaclava and a gun. Then all of a sudden, you and me are in serious trouble. You know, but again, that's what it is. That's because filmmaking, TV, you know, make TV show making.
Because I didn't think anything of it because the gun, you can't put bullets in this thing. But then, you know, when you realize, then you go, that's what, So we need. I got in touch with weapons guys, and then why am I going to all this bother?
Sure, what you do, that's problem solving, because what you do is, you work out what's essential to the scene, you know, and we've built up, and the whole joke with that thing is that, you know, Taxi Joe forever in his own mind, you know, but the audience know, you know, that this fella's about to do something dodgy, you know. And
then we got round that with, on the radio news report, we said he came in with a gun.
Exactly. But even simple things like, you know, it leads you... This is where communication and understand the filmmaking is problem solving, because what happens is if you instantly say no and your mind's closed to an idea, then you don't get to the point where our big reveal was as he walked past camera, he just pulls the balaclava down, which is a really strong shot. And it also kind of then put me at ease, because, you know, like if this was, you know, a production where we had time to let her drop, we had a whole location team, you know, we had informed the police about, you know, all what we were doing and stuff, you know, but we didn't have the time for that, and we're doing it on a shoestring budget with a shoestring crew. You know, you have to get creative, and the fact that you and me were collaborating there and you were open to the suggestions meant we got to this point where as he walks past camera, you know, we had a really good camera team out that day, you know, with the Ronin rig and stuff. As he walks past, you get that really strong image of this balaclava coming down. You know, we've all
that's where people that are in directing or whatever, they've got to rely on the people that are in their positions, and they've got to listen to the experience.
And the vast majority, you know, like, I mean, before we get into this, and, you know, we've all heard horror stories, but, you know, the vast majority of people, and, you know, I, you know, get told, again, don't think we can list, I think you're an egomaniac if you list your own strengths, but I've been told I'm a good communicator, you know, so maybe that's what's kind of helped me not have a lot of these experiences of, you know, people that just simply won't listen. But, you know, both actors and directors, and to be honest, the majority of crew as well, you know, like, you know, and I know this about you as well, we love what we do, you know, and we have a fantastic, like, the crew that we have, you know, Belfast, Northern Ireland based, you know, is absolutely incredible. Yeah,
I really love it. And people that come over love the crew here. And it's such a community, isn't it? Everybody goes out and everybody gets on, and you know what I mean? It's great.
But you know, that's it. Like, you know, I had crew come over there and I was working a day on a job. I was just doing a daily, which normally I don't do. And you know, every single one of them are coming up to me and, you know, saying like, God, about how good your local crew are. You know, they're very professional. And
so what was your first, because you got involved with the film industry. The film industry now here is massive, but you worked in it before.
Do you want a good story?
Go, yeah.
Just
have I heard this before?
It's just between you and I, isn't it? Like nobody's hearing this.
No, this isn't going on or anything. Go.
So, one of my first proper gigs after that, like I worked with those guys, the Spence brothers, like I said, who were so generous to me, and it was good. It was good to get out to that screening and kind of, you know, pay respects. You know, legends.
I'd love to get them on this. Loved it.
I'm sure we can sort that. You know, like I said to you, I have a number somewhere. And I think there's an Instagram page somewhere, so we'll get them in.
Yeah.
You know. Should I have to go down and collect them myself? I don't think they leave Cumber much these days. That's the center of their universe, you know.
And they've got a wee cinema screen.
They had two cinema screens. They had what's it called? The Excelsior, and God, I can't remember the name of the other one. But they were just very generous people. Like if you want to put on, say, your dad's favorite movie was Pulp Fiction. If you wanted to put on a screen of Pulp Fiction for your dad and get everybody round, you didn't pay them money. All they did was they supported a bunch of charities, and all they did was leave out a box there, and you could put in whatever you wanted for charity. She walked in and it was red velvet walls, the old red velvet seats, all the old like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman posters. It was an experience to watch a movie in there. I've been lucky enough to watch a couple of movies in either of them actually, and just the fact that they kind of built these as passion projects, it's for people like ourselves, like, you know, like love cinema, just seeing the love that they've put into this and built it themselves. Two of my favorite cinemas I've ever been in. I don't think anything will ever. The Strand touches it because you can feel the history in the Strand as well, you know, but unbelievable. But so one of my actually first jobs was getting nearly fully naked in front of Heather Graham. Now, I was a lot younger and a lot better shape.
I wasn't Boogie Nights, was it? You stunt double in Boogie Nights?
Oh, I set that one up. No, it was a movie filmed here called Buy, Borrow, Steal at the time, released as Misconception, I believe. And it was a girl who was supposed to like have found out she only had a certain amount of time before she couldn't have children. And so she was supposed to like go into a bunch of like kind of Bridget Jones style kind of, is the, you know, like fantasy kind of thought type things. And we're shooting a scene up close to where I grew up in a place called the Kennedy Center, you know, a supermarket. And we're all walking around. She's walking around the supermarket and she's checking out all these like different types of guys, you know, like it was almost YMCA, like, you know, a cop, a builder, you know, a businessman, this type of ththing, you know. And then all of a sudden she's supposed to kind of look back and all of a sudden they're all naked, you know. So it's my first time experiencing what a modesty sock was.
Okay.
Maybe you want to explain that to your viewers, what a modesty sock is.
I actually don't know. I can have a good idea of what it is.
Modesty sock is if they're trying to do that like nudity where they can show like your hips and all stuff like that there. It's basically a bag that you tie around your bits and pieces. Yeah. And that was my first time in a movie. That was because I won a screenwriting competition and met a guy called Patrick Duncan, who was a bit of a local agent here. And he then said to me, "Oh, you have a certain look." What I didn't know, my certain look was, Gino. So, but this was when I was a student, you know, and you were going from doing your minimum wage jobs to all of a sudden he was saying, "Well, I can get you out on something and you'll be out for like half a day and you'll get £100, you know." Yeah. What I didn't realize my certain look was, it was if they needed somebody to play a terrorist or a scumbag or, you know, somebody that robbed a wee granny, you know, this was the roles that I was getting. But it was good because you were getting kind of a line here and there, you know. But back to the Heather Graham story. So there was me showing up and not really realizing what they were doing. And a very good, I don't know if I should name her now, the costume person, very good costume person. Right. raps on the door of the wee trailer I was getting ready in, and hands me this little pouch, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? You know, but we filmed the scene. It was good. Nervous as hell, but the reason I have to tell that story is because I saw the first AD and said, I want to be that guy, you know? And then I said, when we're finished the scene, and it was, you know, it felt big. There was some people on it that we know, Andy Gardner, Pat Props and stuff, you know. And I said I think I actually said to Andy Gardner, I was like, look, see that guy, do you think he seems to run the show, talking about the first. I was like, do you think he would mind if I stayed around? And Andy said, go and ask him and just tell him it's because you're interested in what you're doing. And I went and said to the guy, went and got my clothes on first, didn't approach him wearing the modesty sock, you know, and said to him, look, I really like, I know, like it's a little bit lighter then, you know. But I said to him, look, I really think I want to do what you do. You know, do you mind if I like hang around the rest of the evening and just observe? And I think because it was a night shoot, because we were in a supermarket, of course, so, you know, saves a lot of money if the supermarket's not open. You know, again, it shows where necessity and you know, this type of lateral thinking is very important. You
see a lot of time Sunday mornings for supermarkets.
Exactly. Yeah, same
because they're not open.
Or, you know, like we've all worked on things where they need to shoot in a big, like, office building in the city centre, then all of a sudden we end up working weekends. I think he was more just impressed that it was a night shoot and that I wanted to hang around because, you know, when you get seasoned crew and all kind of, you know, you finish 15 minutes early on a night shoot, you're happy. But he let me hang around and I just watched him run the set and I was like, I want to do that. It was just watching him and seeing every person that came to him and had a question for him, he had the answer for, and I just went, that's what I want to do. Yeah. You know, and that's what I try to do. That's like, if somebody asks me a question I don't know on a set, I say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to find it out for you. You know, I always think it's the best thing that I can say on a set to anyone. So what would your advice then, if somebody wanted to get in the film industry? What would your, because it's different now, you know, because it's so big, but what would your advice be then? Just like, you know, if it's in school or if it's in university or whatever, the amount of free time, you only realize once you start working in the film industry or working a full-time job and getting actual real, like, responsibilities, how little time you have. But when you're at school, when you're at university, the amount of time you have, get out and start making stuff, because I wish I made more. You know, I did a bit of writing when I was at uni, but I always kind of put it off and found some kind of excuse. Make and get out on the, and there's tons of short films. Just get on the. There's everybody's making shorts, you know. So get on to wee short films and find that way to network and get to know people in the different departments you want to work in. But make one yourself first with all your university buddies, because then you realise the first one you make will be shite. Second one you'll make will be a little bit better. Third one you'll make, like, you know, working with the Toe Hills, and that's like, you know. And having worked on some of their shorts before they started making features and TV shows, you know, they showed me the short that they made before the one I worked on, and then I asked to see the other ones before that, and they said no. You know, but I'm sure I could find them. You know, unfortunately, I haven't got all my stuff's on the internet, so I don't have that luxury. You're laid bare. You're out there. You know, whatever you think of you, it's there. But you know, like Ryan and Andy both said that to me as well. Like, you got to make the ones to learn on the job, you know, and you got to realize when you're the one there trying to solve the problem, you know, trying to answer the questions, that at least gets you the experience of doing that before you get out onto someone else's short. Because what you might realize is when you're out doing that is that you've an affinity for camera, or that you're like me, you wouldn't know fucking what end of the camera is the correct end, you know? Yeah, and shorts are good for that too, aren't they? You know, it steers you in the right direction. All of a sudden you might find that you're quite creative at a way of getting a camera move to happen. And we all know, you know, you can get a camera move happening. We've all done shots where the cameraman is sitting on a bloody chair like we're sitting on now, and you wheel them down a corridor as long as the floor's steady enough. You know, we've all done that, but that's real life problem solving. And you would have ticking, you know? You would have experienced it where you'd have people starting in the AD department Yeah.
And then, you know, for a few jobs, and then they go off and do something else because,
Yeah.
they just get into it that way. And then they're just like, this department isn't for me, you know, because you need to be.
Well, a lot of times the AD department is one that will need like additional people, you know, because you've got lock-offs and stuff like that. And, you know, maybe you've got additional crowd days and stuff. And, you know, you don't mind it if it's somebody, because you would have done it yourself, you know. It's more disappointing if it's somebody that you've put a lot of time into. You know, and it's a bit like if, you know, you're training somebody with anything. If you put a bit of time into training them and you can see them develop and grow, and then they go off in another direction, it's a little bit but again, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, everybody wants to be happy with what they're doing. So I don't think you can be too harsh on it, you know. But it is nice. It is nice when you see somebody coming from being a brand new trainee to being ready to take the next step and, like, you know, third something or be a key floor person on one of the bigger jobs. That's always a good feeling, you know.
So what does your job entail then? What qualities do you need to bring to the table? Say if you want to be a good assistant director.
I mean, you know, you could go with like the kind of
personality,
the base qualities.
Personality is massive, isn't it? Having a really good personality, but being charming.
Did you just compliment me?
What's that?
Did you just compliment me?
Well, there are exceptions. There are exceptions.
No, I mean, listen, a personality is important. I think being able to adapt that personality, and I don't mean being fake, I mean be all things to all people, because everybody who comes to you with a problem, that's the biggest problem in their world. You know, do you know what I mean? And everybody on a set wants to do a good job. So if somebody comes to you with a problem, you got to listen, see how you fit into that problem, and see how you can help them solve it. Because if you do that once with somebody, then you're okay in their eyes.
Yeah.
You know. And then when it comes to me needing help, so I think having the personality.
But it's like but in terms of what I mean with personality is being outgoing and, you know, get somebody that gets on and mingles well with, because as an AD, you're like you sort of have to be a fulcrum between all departments, but also not only the departments but the actors. You know what I mean? So sometimes what you can find is crew are different to actors, because crew are just like working and they're doing a job.
Yeah.
And it's blending them two worlds. So you're always very good at speaking to actors in their language. Do you know what I mean? Because actors, it's like weird. Like actors are in their wee bubble and the crew are in their bubble, and they do different things. But we're all obviously at the end of the day, we're all trying to make a film or a TV show or whatever.
Also,
do you know what I mean? But you can speak to actors in their language.
I know what you're saying, but also that's where I kind of think what I mean, like that. You got to be all things to all people. That's what I mean. But the key word there is people. Actors are still people like the rest of us. And what I tend to do is just try to look at it from the actor side of things. And what I do is look at a crew that are kind of working day in, day out. And this may be the 10th job we've worked together. Then you get a daily actor coming in who knows nobody, is coming in to nail a key scene and is nervous as hell and just wants to be treated like a human being. So now you can go more into individual cases and know, like when you meet an actor, know just from the energy they're giving off if they want to be left alone or if they want to have loads of information or if they want to. But generally what I tend to do is try to treat the actors the same, which is try to be friendly to them, try to be warm and try and give them as much information as possible. Because I tend to find that actors don't like that us and them thing. They don't see themselves as anything different. They
exactly.
They just want to feel like we're all pulling in the same direction. So that's what I try to do. I try to break down the barrier between the crew and the cast. As you've seen before, that can be getting them involved in a bit of banter, you know, and maybe, you know, making them the butt of the joke for a change instead of, you know, instead of them like kind of joking around with me, you know. And I tend to find once they feel that there's a bit of a back and forth there, it relaxes them. And then you have a relaxed set, and a relaxed set, because if you do that across the board, a relaxed set is a creative set, is a productive set, is a set that's complete in days.
And then, but like a lot of the time with actors, because of what they do, it's you know, they have to go off into this different headspace and become somebody else. It's a different profession, you know what I mean? Whereas then you go into sets with crews and say Grips, Sparks, we're all doing our thing and we're all doing, and it's all technical stuff, and it's just a complete.
Yeah,
it's a polar opposite as to what they're doing. So
but at the same time,
but that's what I'm saying. You know, accommodating them and getting them comfortable, because they have to go on camera and sometimes, you know, do outrageous things. You know, they could be crying their eyes out in one scene. They could be fighting in another scene. Yeah. There's so many different parameters. And as you say, you know, it all depends on the day. It depends on what they need. Yeah. And what headspace they need to be in before they can perform in that scene.
That's then where a bit of prep comes into it. You know, you read what's coming up, you know, on your sides the night before. And if you, like you said, you know, if it's an emotional scene or whatever, you know, first up, then what you can do, you know, whether you're first or third, and, you know, you can literally go around and tell the crew, you know, look, let's keep all the equipment back a little bit. Let's just have the floor space as quiet as possible. And then just tell, if you don't need to be on the set, just don't be there, you know? And then when the actor's coming in, that's again where it's like, you know, if you see the actors walking in and is in that headspace where they're trying to like focus in on something, you know, then I'm not going to fucking jump in and hit them a slap in the back and, well, are we going for pints later? You kind of mirror the energy that what they're giving you, and then you give them that back, you know.
So is there anything if a day comes up, you go, right, this is going to be a big day or whatever. Is there, like, say, for instance, like an action sequence, or let's say there's a sequence where, especially in this day and age, in this environment, considering what's happening in the industry in the last 10 years, say there's, you know, a romantic involvement, there's sex or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a lot to think about there in terms of making the actors comfortable in that environment, isn't there?
Well, I mean, it all goes back to prep, you know?
Yeah.
Be prepared. Have all these conversations, and it goes right back to, and as you know, I'm kind of in between, you know, third in and first in at the minute, you know, and starting to step up. And the more I do of first thing, the more I realize how important it is to have these conversations early and have these conversations often. You know, because look, you could do this, or like if you haven't spoken about, say, an intimate scene, and you could get there on the day, and you could. So now, you know, it is kind of the standard practice to have an intimacy coordinator out if you need, you know, if it's deemed that you need to. But for example, if you haven't, very basic example, but if you haven't spoken to the director about the intimacy scene, and if he says, no, that all happens off camera, our guy takes our girl and walks her, you know, out of the frame, and it's noises. And, you know, because sometimes your brain's a more vivid thing than what's on camera anyway. Then if you're on a movie with a limited budget, you know, have you wasted money on an intimacy coordinator that you don't need? Yeah. But then equally, if you're shooting something and it deviates from, the director suddenly goes, oh, it would be nice to do this, and he asks the actor and actress in front of a bunch of crew, all of a sudden there's pressure there. Yeah. That's not good. So then all of a sudden you've left yourself open that you should have had an intimacy coordinator there, you know? So
no, but as you say, that you need to establish, let's say you got an actor, two actors, and they're involved in an intimate scene. You need to establish that and how comfortable each of these people are with each other before the crew even turn up, before you shoot. And because if you leave that and you haven't done your prep right, and you haven't made sure both people are completely okay, completely comfortable, and one of the actors has it lingering in their head, it's going to affect their performance throughout the whole shoot, isn't it? Yeah.
And, you know, like you're saying, I think, and you can have some people, and it can just be because scheduling a movie, a TV show isn't easy. So you can have somebody showing up on their first day and doing, you know, I know most firsts would try and avoid that, but sometimes you've tough choices to make. So you can have an actor or actress coming in, could be both of them, and doing an intimate scene on their first day. So are they comfortable with the first AD? Are they comfortable with the crew? You know, I would always endeavor to be the person that if anyone is uncomfortable about anything at any time, that I want the crew to feel like they're comfortable to come and talk to me. But that's why the role exists, is to have one person who's specific for that role. And if that was the thing that was happening, that both actors or one of the actors was coming in on their first day, then there would be Zoom chats ahead of time with the intimacy coordinator and the director, and perhaps a producer as well, to nail down exactly what that is and make sure somebody isn't doing something that they then later regret, or they feel wasn't discussed thoroughly, or they were kind of coerced into. Yes. I mean, we've all heard the stories of Last Tango in Paris, you know, and that's like, that type of thing should never happen on a film set, and I certainly wouldn't want anything like that to happen.
And you've been there with your sock thing, your intimacy sock.
Yeah.
You've been there, so you know what it's like.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I remember, and you know, lightening it up a little bit again, I remember all these other guys who were supposed to be doing that. I kind of didn't really listen to what I was supposed to be doing. I was just told I was going to get paid 400 quid and I'd probably be there for half a day. And I was like, I'm a student, sign me up to that.
400 quid?
400 quid, because it was like supposedly full nudity, you know. But some money, you know. I was like, Jesus. I was like, I'll do anything for 400 pounds at that stage of my life, you know. But I remember seeing the lads who I was going to be doing it with. And I remember specifically one of them was a Chippendale. You know, it's like I didn't even think they existed in Belfast. But I remember showing up, Gino, and they were all like muscly dudes with shaved chests and all, and we're all like sunbedded up and fake tanned and all. And I showed up, I was just some 19-year-old fella, you know, that was like, you know, was in decent shape, played a bit of sport and whatever. But I remember then costume couldn't find me because I ran around the back of the Kennedy Center to do press-ups and sit-ups, you know. I was like,
why?
Because it was just all of a sudden I was thrown into this world where all these other guys who were getting naked were all like Peter Andre six-packs, and there was fucking me, hadn't even done a sunbed or anything, this wee pale dude from Belfast.
I better jack up.
Better try and do something. And the costume person came looking for me and went, we've been looking you for half an hour. And I was like, sorry, you know, but listen, I never did that again. You learn, again, every moment out on a film set is a learning experience. And that was one of them. If you're going somewhere, tell people where you're going. Because the second you don't, you're going to be needed. And that's why I tell all my extras, I'm like, you need to go somewhere, tell me or tell my team, because the second you turn away is the second we say, oh, we like that extra, let's do a shot on them. And I turn around, you're not there. And then it's like,
So we're saying the industry now is very different to what it was.
Oh yeah.
So you were in it's like the film industry in Northern Ireland is like pre-Game of Thrones, post-Game of Thrones,
That's
isn't
true.
it?
Yeah.
So pre-Game of Thrones, what was the film industry like here?
I mean, it was more sparse. You know, obviously Game of Thrones kicked everything off and kind of put us on a pedestal that we could, you know, it showed the world that we could shoot, you know, massive productions, and that the quality would be there, you know, and we could facilitate that and we could take it all the way through, you know. Beforehand, it was more TV and more small indie film, but the biggest thing for Trying to Survive as a crew member was that you'd maybe go 4 or 5 months between getting a call about a job, you know, or there was only one job going at a time, so the competition for the roles was like, you know, it seems there's enough work. When we have it good here, there's enough work for everyone, you know. We've been dealing with a strike and all that, but you know, in general, back then it was one job was shooting, then there was 2 or 3 months before another one started up, so it was kind of, you know, you kind of needed to have another option of making money, because I didn't have like you know, a credit card that I could just keep swiping, you know. It was kind of, there was a time that it was going like, is this a viable career, you know. Luckily I stuck with it, you know, but there was some kind of times where you're kind of thinking, God, will I be able to, you know, just the basic stuff, will I be able to afford a car that's not breaking down all the time, will I be able to you know, live in a house in an area that I enjoy, you know, just the simple stuff that I think everybody wants, you know.
I remember, because it was pre-Game of Thrones as well, I went to London, and you know, because there was nothing here, you know, you couldn't I just couldn't see a breakthrough here, and you couldn't envision the way the industry's going here. I mean, there's just constant jobs coming in. There's big jobs. There's a stream of dramas that come in every year as well.
Even getting down and looking at the studios, you know, the Belfast Harbour studios. You know, I haven't been there in a while. I haven't filmed something there for a few years. And then I dropped my wife down, and seeing that there's 2 new studios already, like almost finished being built there. So, you know, like the people that know more than us must know enough to believe that's a viable investment. So it's good, you know.
So when you started then, what was your first job then as an AD?
Oh yeah, my first job as an AD was a series of shows called Fairy Tales for the BBC. I'll be forever grateful for giving me my start. I came in and met 2 ADs it was a second AD and a third AD called Darren Fee and Stevie Dara, two people who I hope they don't mind me mentioning because they'll forever be so important in my career, because I came into audition for, this is when I was doing the extras work, and like I said, was getting, you know, wee parts with like 1 or 2 lines and whatever. And I come in the audition for a part that had like 4 lines, and I was like, all right, this is class. And it was in the Welly Park Hotel, and they were there. And by the time I arrived, because I'd been out the night before, of course, you know, time I arrived, that part had been cut. But they, being gentlemen that they were, waited around. I was the last person they had to see. And they said, well, here, you've came down to see us. Sorry for that. Do you want a pint of beer? I was like, oh, why not? Got talking to them. Then they said, look, maybe they saw something in me. Maybe they just needed to pick somebody. I don't know. But they said, look, do you want to be a stand-in for one of the actors? And we'll train you as an AD as well. I was like, fantastic. I was like, that's amazing. Even though the actor I was standing in for was Bernard Hill, you know, King Theoden himself, you know, who's a good few inches taller than me. But hence the reason then I was running around in bloody cowboy boots, because it was like, I want, you know, I want to like be like, don't want anybody to be able to say like, why has this person been hired, you know? But those two lads, Darren and Stevie, were so good to me, taught me the ropes. And that was actually with Chris Baugh as well, who's a very successful local director. He was the other trainee AD at the time, and Chris very nicely kind of saw that I loved this, and Chris kind of went, look, they're only taking one more person onto this. I think that should be you onto the next like run of jobs. And you know, so again, it's funny, like you know, in terms of the quality of the shows, terrible, but in terms of the relationships that it built, I'm still hold those 3 people in the highest regard to this day, you know, and that was 17 years ago. So that went from being like a stand-in to then being on the jobs as the next, like, Fairy Tales was a bunch of different kind of supposed to be modern twists on classic fairy tales. So there was 4 of them, I think, shot here. But I got to do some cool things because, like you said, this is the game before Thrones, when we didn't really have extras casting companies and stuff. You know, there's a few people doing it, but nothing set up like the extras department are now, who are like, you know, the gold standard. We all of a sudden changed and we're shooting a Wimbledon style scene in a tennis club, and all of a sudden they needed, you know, 200 extras by the end of the day. I said to them, print me out flyers and send me into the city centre. I said, I'll get to them, you know, and end up got like 200 extras to come out, mostly all students. You know, students tend to have more free time and get them out on a movie set.
They want a few quid for a beer or whatever,
you know. And that kind of served me well because it showed people that I could muck in and kind of think outside the box, and just that I was, you know, there to kind of help and there to make the movie work, you know.
How have you seen the industry change then over the years, for the good and the bad?
I mean, it might sound, you know, I honestly think the industry's changing for the better all the time.
Absolutely,
you know,
I agree.
I really do. You know, I think we're more structured. I think, you know, things like intimacy coordinators, things like, you know, when I started, it kind of would have been a bunch of things like, well, who does that role fall to? You know, you know, like we're talking about, like having a weapon out on a set. You know, I think now there's more specific people for the specific jobs, and I think just in general, what I've seen as well, because you know, you kind of when you start, you kind of fall in with the same generation of crew starts. You know, it's not like I'm going to come in as a new trainee and start hanging about with the DOP. You know, so you kind of grow with these people, you know, across the board, across all roles. And just watching all them kind of just become like lead figures in the game. You know, what I've seen is just the industry kind of go from it being still a bit Wild West when I started here to being, and I've worked in different places all over the world, and I think we've got the best crew. You know,
I think our crew is fantastic.
It's a huge reason why I don't go or search for jobs anywhere else. Don't get me wrong, I'll go somewhere if I need to, or if there's not, you know, or if you miss out on a job, or if there's not enough work. But I tend to want to stay here because I've been working in different places and the frustration that I deal with, because I constantly, the thought going through my head is this wouldn't happen if it was our crew.
Yeah.
There's so many good schemes, and I've been lucky to kind of start working with a few of the companies that are doing them, that are getting people from different ethnic backgrounds, different financial situations, and showing them that, do you know what, this is a viable career path, and that sometimes all you need to do is be in the right place, the right time, and then somebody gives you a chance. Because
that's what this industry is all about: being in the right place, the right time. There's so much luck involved. And then networking such a huge part of it.
But just being able to say yes to something when it's offered. You know, there's been circumstances where, you know, a lot of people, when I go out and do like talks or chats to kids in schools and stuff, say like, oh, you know, I heard everybody's somebody's uncle and all this here. There is a lot of that as well. You know, like, you know, I was one of the people that didn't know anyone when I started and found it quite difficult, you know, and like I said, get into that through winning a screenwriting pitching competition. And for example, there's plenty of people who have started as some of my trainees, especially, that simple things like I put on like media therapy group on Facebook saying, send me an email. Do not send me a private message on Facebook. Send me an email with A, B, and C listed. And like the last example, the first person to get back to me was the only person that did it correctly, because everybody didn't read it and sent me Facebook messages. And when you're having to take a chance on somebody, that's your only way to judge them. So I'm saying, the first thing that I asked them to do, they did wrong. So the first person actually that got back to me was the only one to send me an email with all the relevant details in the email. So that made me pick that person. And that's just because that person was in the right place, checking Facebook at the right time, and followed the simple instructions to send me that. So there's always opportunity. You know, there always is opportunity. And like, we know that there's a bunch of schemes with Northern Ireland Screen. There's a bunch of a bunch of bursaries with screen skills who are doing fantastic things. And then there's Screenworks NI that are doing fantastic things as well for you know, people. I think it's like 12 to 19 years old, could be wrong on that, but all doing amazing things and all giving like entry level or opportunities. And these things need to be talked about and celebrated, because they didn't exist when I started. And I remember, I can't remember, I'm showing my age, but going through the yellow pages to look for even film production companies in Belfast, you know, and I found one of them. And I hate that guy, Brendan Byrne, who is a fantastic documentary maker. But back then he was kind of still making features and stuff as well. But Brendan has made so many good documentaries. And Brendan gave me advice, and I've done a bit of work for Brendan. But it was so hard to find somebody to be able to give you opportunity. So when you do get an opportunity, or when somebody does phone, or when somebody is there, take it and just make it work. Yeah. You know, like I have reached out to people before, very recently as well, saying, oh, you know, I got your CV a year ago. Here, are you available tomorrow? I can't. It's my girlfriend's finishing her exams and we're going out for lunch. Go out tomorrow for lunch.
Yeah, you know,
If you're getting your chance,
it might come again. You know, it's one of those weird things.
That's it. And you know yourself, it only takes one day for somebody to go, this person's got something. You know,
and see what, like, if somebody got an opportunity, what I would say to them is try and look at, fill in a gap on, you know, on set, say if you're an AD or whatever, and do things that needs to be done but nobody else is doing. You know, even making somebody tea, getting somebody food, and doing little things in the background to take the pressure off the people above you, and you'll get noticed for it. Like,
listen, as I say to one of the I say to all the trainees is like, you know, you're not going to come in and you're not going to be like running a film set, you know, but what you're going to do is, if you bring the first AD a bottle of water every 2 hours, that first AD suddenly doesn't get through his day, 2/3 of the way through his day, and have a splitting headache because he's that busy. He's actually forgotten to drink water.
And that's it. This isn't like saying, oh, you have to bring the first AD of water. First AD in set, some jobs, hasn't time to drink water. Do you know what I mean? But or hasn't time to go and get his own water.
Yeah,
what I mean?
But that's what I mean. It's like you said, it's spotting that wee thing that you can do. Like I said, I was lucky on one of my first jobs that, like I said, I got that big opportunity to go into town. And like you said, that's where personality kicks in. I was full of my own bloody piss and vinegar that I was like, I can do that, you know? Would I do that now? Probably not, you know, but but that's what I mean. It's that thing of like bringing the first AD water. That's the wee moment that when the first AD stand there going, Jesus, my head's busting. And the new trainee walks over and goes, here, I thought you might like that.
Yeah.
That for me, I go, that kid's thinking.
Yeah.
That person's thinking, you know? And it makes me go, that person doesn't need to be told what to do all the time. That person is thinking for themselves. How can I assist, even in that small way? These bricks build houses, do you know what I mean? It's that's one wee brick that you put into that wall, and that's how we make films, honestly.
Just touched on it there. Basically, I was asking you about what's the best thing that's happened in the industry, what's the worst, right? So you were talking there about the first AD on set, and he mightn't have time to get a bottle of water, right? So I would say, in my opinion, one of the things that is a downside of the industry, and it's circumstantial based on where the television industry's at, in the sense that schedules are becoming more and more tougher. Page counts are becoming bigger each day. And that's, partly out of necessity, because television now has got so much competition. It's got all the streamers, it's got YouTube's, all these different things that weren't about when 20 years ago, even 30, 40 years ago, when television was king and there was so much money about. It's becoming tougher, isn't it, for television to make shows with so much competition out there?
I mean, the easy answer is to say yes.
But that's what I mean. It's tough. Days are tougher now. Page counts are bigger. Yeah. They're more ambitious than what they were 20 years ago.
That's page, but I don't ever feel like I'm out on something that, and maybe this is, I don't want to disagree with you just for the sake of, of having a back and forth conversation. But I don't think like that, because I can't think like that, because inherently I have to be positive. But
yeah, when you wanna your job is to make to achieve the day, so you don't want to be thinking.
And I don't ever look at. I haven't been.
But you have to admit the page counts are different than what they were. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And schedules are getting tougher.
But equally, like I said, it's kind of.
And I'm not having a go at anybody.
No,
you're
certainly not.
It's circumstantial. Television, it's struggling now. But it's television when it's up against Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's coming up to a crossroads. Like
yes, but I don't think that's really any. I think they're two kind of separate things. Like that's maybe more to do with just how people are consuming their content.
Yes, but would you not say that tougher schedules and tighter budgets is a result of the amount of competition that's out there?
No, I don't necessarily think it's that. I think it's to do with, I think a more kind of real kind of reason for that is just the fact that how much, like, the cost of living and the cost of everything has went up, and not that might sound like I'm taking this side of the production, but it's really not. It's kind of like, if you look at simple things, like I know, for example, my friend was building a house, and then there was an 8-month delay in it because of COVID and all that. And then all of a sudden, when he went back to like builders and stuff being back on site, all of a sudden the house was going to be 120 grand more because of the cost of steel, the cost of labor, the cost of everything, So I think it's more just to do with that. I think it's more to do with our economy and more to do with, for example, if a TV show has made season 1 for, let's keep it simple, say like 5 million, when they come back to make season 2 with all these costs increasing, 5 million isn't going to cut it. So I think it's more to do with just the state that the economy's in.
That's an element of it too. Would you say television's got a fruitful future then?
Yeah, I do. Because I really do. Because I have to think like that, because I work with so many people that are great storytellers, and I work on so many things that I believe in. And I think with the amount of good crew, and like I said, there's very positive signs here as well, with like more studios being built all the time. Yeah. But maybe it is just that I'm a positive person. But yeah, I do think the future of TV is
I think huge. It needs to evolve with the way society's evolving more so than what it is. But you know, in terms of it's the way television's funded and different things like that. For me, it's getting very complicated.
I mean, you kind of tend to pay attention more to that type of stuff than I do. You know, maybe it's, you know, I don't know how this is going to come across. Am I, you know, is it positivity, and is it like that I love what I do and I love the people that I work with, or am I an ostrich with my head in the sand? I don't fucking know. But you would tend to pay attention to that type of stuff more than I would. So, you know, all I can say is I think the amount of different, even the jobs that we don't work on, you know, and we have colleagues that work on, and, you know, they're telling you every day, God, this job's fantastic. You know, Woman in the Wall, for example, with Ruth Wilson, you know, like, you know, the reports I was hearing about that job, and, you know, then it does fantastically well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, so yeah, I'm hearing much more positive stories every year than negative stories, and it's lovely, you know.
So going back, why did you want to get involved with the film industry? What's the thing that inspired you then?
I mean, I fell in love with movies. Like, I was watching bloody Commando and Jean-Claude Van Damme movies instead of watching cartoons. You know, like, me and my dad would have watched every action flick under the sun, and I mean, I'm talking things that you may or may not have even heard of, like China O'Brien 2, The Best of the Best. You know, I'm talking like movies that look like they're shot on a potato, you know, with like Cynthia Rothrock, who was a like multi-time karate and kickboxing champion.
But that's certainly something that's changed, isn't it? In like the 1980s, there was a huge market for all them movies.
Yeah.
Both in cinema, and the home release was a huge market as well, wasn't it? With you know, VHS.
Yeah,
when we were growing up,
that's
and then
only when that started.
When it moved into DVD, different things again.
But like you're saying, that's why because I think these things go in circles and patterns, you know. Because like,
I think things go in and out of vogue. Yeah,
And like home video, but you're like, you only have to look at like record players. You know, people are saying they're obsolete. Now, anyone that's supposed to be,
I just got one there last week.
Of course you did. I saw it sitting in there. You know. Christmas jumpers and record players, but
the Christmas record's the first one, obviously.
But that's what I mean. These things always kind of come back around, you know.
But I think there's an exciting thing about, for me, with cinema. What I am excited about, and this is going to sound weird, is the superhero movies are not starting to make the money they used to make.
That's what I mean.
So
that's another circle. Yeah,
I think there's something potentially in the future that could be exciting about cinema again. You know, I could see certain stories come back into prevalence again, because the formula isn't working as well as it used to for the studios.
Well, I think they've really, with those, they've kind of, you know.
For me, it's amazing that they got so much out of that. It's amazing the length of the run they got out of them superhero movies.
Do you not just see them as kind of like they're like the action movies that we watched? You know, of course they're sanitized and they're
more geared towards children, obviously.
Of course. Yeah. That's, I mean, we grew up in a kind of society was a wee bit wilder then. You know, I used to watch the action movies with my dad, and then if there was any bloody sex scenes, like, there's nothing more uncomfortable than your dad saying cover your eyes, and like sitting on the floor watching the movie and having to cover your eyes for a sex scene, but yet you're able to see Arnie throw a 4-foot blade through somebody's fucking chest and say stick around, you know. But I mean, all that stuff like that was my, you know, introduction to film. And like you said, it was more, they were more like, you know, adult kind of cartoons, because they were ridiculous. It was a huge man with muscles upon muscles, you know, killing 100 people and not getting a scratch himself. But, you know, then like you developed on and you started watching what I would call more like action movies with a plot, like Lethal Weapon and stuff. You all know how much I love. Jesus, and this is all, but this influenced my life so much, because one, I knew I was in love with, you know, movies. Two, I get into kickboxing. And three, I was like, I'm going to drive a pickup truck like Martin Riggs. And all three have affected my life, you know. So, you know, but there was a love there from I was about 5 for movies. And that's why cartoons really didn't get a look in afterwards. The most important thing for me in a movie is chemistry between our leads, you know, and that can be romantic chemistry, you know, like Pretty Woman is just Pretty Woman,
unbelievable,
or
movie.
Casablanca, you know, at two opposite ends of, you know, the film kind of history, you know, but both of them are two favorites of mine because you believe the chemistry between the leads. But Lethal Weapon for me is like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you know, you believe that these two dudes who only met on screen in Lethal Weapon, you know, but you believe the relationship as it develops into family, you know, that's it. And if I believe that in a movie, then I'm all in, and I can forgive a bunch of different trespasses. But if I believe the chemistry between our lead characters, then I'm all in on it, you know? And I believe that relationship, same way I believed in the Rocky movies about, I believed in the misunderstanding and the hatred between Rocky and Apollo at first, but then believed, like, I wanted to be Apollo before I wanted to be Rocky, because maybe that's because, you know, he reminded me of Muhammad Ali. I believed him more as a boxer, you know, and I remember watching those movies, but it all came down to believing, and the relationship between Mickey and Rocky, you know, Burgess Meredith is one of my favorite actors to this day, you know, but I believed everything they were saying, you know. So these were my cartoons, you know, but like I said, it affected every aspect of my life. For instead of playing football, I was a kickboxer, you know. I ended up working in the film industry, and I drive a bloody pickup truck. Like I said, it's, you know, so movies have been so important to me, you know.
And then it was funny, you're talking about Rocky there. It was like the movies were like a reflection of where the industry was at. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like, so the 70s Rocky movies were very.
Oh yeah, it was like Mean
They're
Streets.
very they were very gritty. They were very, and then the 80s movies became very pop, very action, very montagey. You know what I mean?
I mean, and they all have their place, like you said. It's like, I love going back and watching, you know, the original. I always watch the original, and it, you know, it's like a thing of it always inspires you, the original, you know, that of never to give up, you know. Well, it's I always remember, it's that scene where he's talking to Gazzo in the car, and then, you know, and then he walks away, and he's walking along like the railings, and you look around the whole, like, Philadelphia, like, it's basically like Beirut, you know. And he's walking away just, you know, with the ball, and I'm just like, this is proper 70s grim, you know. But then, like you said, you go to Rocky 4, and it's like montages with Lamborghinis, and, you know, you know, like, you know, songs by Robert Tepper and the Scorpions, just like, you know, playing for like half the movie. But it's a very good point to make. But like, we all grew up with them, and, you know, maybe that's what it was. Maybe
there's this great. The Rocky character is such a great character that has lasted like so long. He's one of the greatest characters in terms of the longevity of it. And then when you think the character's dead, you know, after Rocky Balboa, then they reignite the whole thing with Creed, and Rocky comes back. I mean, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone got nominated for an Oscar in Creed. The performance was,
I should have got it.
I think it was his best ever performance.
Should have got it as well. I mean.
The way they connected the dots in that Creed, I was, because when I first went in to go and see it, I was going, this is going to be a pile of shite, and it was brilliant.
It tapped into something real, because, like, you know, you seeing a heroic figure, and, you know, like, Rocky always reminded me of my dad. Let's be honest, that's where it goes with me. And you've met my dad, you know, you know, as just a heroic character, and taking you to that place where, like, our hero is struggling with something like cancer that's very real. That for me just made that movie, it was like Santa being killed. Do you know what I mean? You were like, there's no way you're gonna fucking do this to us, you know. But they made it believable enough that you were like, he might die here. This might be a good way to just fade this all out, you know. But no, I remember. I mean, we've all grown up watching those movies. But yeah, like I said, they played such a big part in my upbringing, who I am. So it's you know, you can never forget, like, the first time you sat down and watched those movies.
And even in the stuff with the Adrian in the first one, there was such a charm to it, wasn't there? Do you know what I mean?
And her performances are so underrated.
And the way she carried him through that fight, really, you know, her being in his life.
I mean, and I love her character development, you know, and Burt Young just passed, and, you know, like, the fact that Burt Young plays such a, and that, like you're saying, that shows you how kind of grim, like, the first couple of movies were, because Burt Young only becomes kind of even a half decent human being. Paulie only becomes a half decent human being, like, maybe like midway through the third movie, you know. That he's a horrible person. And that guy, and funny, the only one that was actually a boxer. Did you know that?
Oh right, I didn't know that. No.
If you look up photos of Burt Young, boxer, he held some kind of regional titles and stuff. So
when you were inspired by these movies, what did you initially want to do?
Stuntman. Wanted to be a stuntman. I used to like look at things that I could break, jump from. I remember a fella, I don't think he's going to listen to this, so I'm going to say it anyway, okay. Paul Brown. His mum and dad had a front door and a big yellow stained glass window at the side of it. And I remember thinking, I can jump through that window. And he was like, no, you can't. And I put my hoodie up and pulled it tight with and pulled it down to like that, so it looked like a Ninja Turtle or something, and jumped through the window. And only once I jumped through the window, realised what I'd done. And we had seconds to think of an excuse of why that happened as his parents come running out. I pretended.
So what do you mean you jumped through the window? You went through the pane of glass?
Oh yeah, like bombed through the window. It was like, because stuntmen did it in movies. I was like, I can do that. So like I was obsessed with like you imagine, Jesus, you know me, you imagine 9-year-old me who was kickboxing, bloody jumping off cars and, you know, kicking things and trying to kick walls down, kicking trees, you know. But I remember going, I can jump through that pane glass window, and dove through it, and then realised the enormity of what I'd done. And we pretended that I tripped coming down the stairs and fell out the window. So I can't believe we got away with it until now. But, you know. So I
thought, a bill through the door.
I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be a stuntman, or I thought it was going to be like maybe at that age, like something around that, like, you know, I suppose now you would call it like a fight coordinator or something like that. I remember like choreographing fights when I was a kid and kind of going, this feels real, you know, and like trying to work out how you like throw a punch and make it look real but not hurt the person, you know. And that's what they kind of do in the WWE, you know, it's called pulling the punch. But yeah, when I think back, like I can always remember like thinking about, right, okay, this is what you see on screen, but how do you do that? You know? And then I suppose that, you know, there is then a crossover into what I do now, because isn't that what we all do together? We break it down, and, you know, and if it's not me organising that, then I need to know the specialist person, i.e. the stuntman, how they are going to do it, you know, and then how can I facilitate that, you know? So yeah, it goes right back to being like maybe 8-9 years of age, you know?
So Christmas movie, what is your favourite Christmas movie?
I mean, we've had this argument before. People don't even count Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie, but it is. Sure, it starts off with Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell.
It's not a Christmas movie.
Oh, come on, the fuck now.
And Die Hard's not a Christmas movie
You
either.
can go fuck. He didn't tell me this, by the way, before coming on the show. He's ambushed me with this, because they're both Christmas movies. They both start with a Christmas tree in the frame.
Christmas is the backdrop of the movie. It's not a Christmas movie.
They both start
Christmas movies are about family and about giving.
Well, Lethal Weapon's about family. Lethal Weapon's literally about family. You've talked about blending genres.
It's not Christmas.
He's getting me angry now. Right? It's about family. It's about somebody. It's about a wee orphan.
What's your proper Christmas movie?
Lethal Weapon. It's about a wee orphan boy, Martin Riggs, who has nobody.
Right.
By the end of the movie, he's accepted into a family for Christmas dinner.
Because there's a whole thing about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, isn't it? Like,
ours is not. The last line is it? What's the last line in Die Hard?
Go tell me. If
this is what happens at Christmas, I gotta be here for New Year.
Yeah, but it's an action movie.
Blends the genres, kid. You said that to me.
Yeah, but no. Home Alone.
But Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie because, like I said,
you made a good point there about the orphan stuff and all. I like that.
That's the undercurrent. He's wearing a fucking Top Gun Christmas jumper, and he's pulling me about things that shouldn't be Christmassy. What's Top Gun got to do with Christmas?
It's got nothing to do with Christmas, but they've designed it in a lovely Christmas jumper, which is available to buy on.
I was going to say somebody's paid him to wear that. I always go back to It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah. It's awesome, isn't it? Anybody who hasn't seen that should watch that.
But honestly, I do put Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie because, do you know what? But like I said, because I believe their relationship, I love watching them on screen. And even though it is an action movie, I'm left feeling Christmassy and happy from watching that. So I'm nudging it into your bracket here for Christmas. But It's a Wonderful Life, amazing. Watched Muppets Christmas Carol for the first time last night.
It's great.
Yeah. Picks up. It was a bit like the second and third actor class. Scrooged is a big one of mine.
Yeah,
because it's
Bill Murray
Unleashed, you know, and see that little kid that plays Tiny Tim.
Yeah,
The wee fella who
Chevy Chase's one's great
the
too.
wee fella who doesn't talk the whole movie, and it's his delivery at the end when he says, "God bless us, everyone." Scrooge makes me cry every time at that, and I mean, I'm like Demi Moore and Ghost. It's just like the perfect tear every time.
Yeah.
As soon as that wee kid
Home
says,
Alone, obviously, a big shout out. Do you not like Home Alone?
No, I mean,
Home Alone gets
Home
me
Alone-
every
listen.
time, and the mum comes back into the house.
Great.
And the music's playing and all.
Well,
the scene in the church with the old man. Now, that's Christmas.
yeah, listen,
Come on.
no, fair play. But like I said, when when the wee guy that doesn't speak throughout the whole movie, and Bill Murray's monologue when he's saying about doing good things and good things will happen to you and you'll feel it and you want to do it every day. But again, believe that. And then the wee kid pulls him by the coat sleeve and goes, "God bless it." I'm getting filled up now thinking about it. That wee bit. That bit gets me every time. He's also like the cutest kid ever made. So he's like, it just works. I would say It's a Wonderful Life and Scrooge are the ones, and Bloodsport.
There you
Bloodsport's
go.
a great Christmas movie.
If that doesn't get you into the spirit of Christmas, nothing will. Paul, thank you very much for
That's a
coming in
pleasure.
today, and I'm sure I'll see you over Christmas. And yeah, I'd love to do this again sometime.
Listen, congratulations, honestly. If what I wanted to say as well is not to drag it out, but anyone needs an example about going after things and doing things, they should look at you. And I mean that because you wanted to do a podcast, you've set it up and you're doing it. You wanted to make a TV show, you did it. Just don't find the excuses, just find ways to do it and get out and do it. And the example's my man right here. His fashion sense is terrible, but he's a good spud.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I'm blushing here. Merry Christmas, everyone. And until next time, I'll see you after.
Happy Christmas.